We also have new entrants coming into our space. I think you all saw that 2 months ago, Amazon decided to team up with Berkshire Hathaway and JP Morgan, and they think they can have a different look at healthcare. And it's not just them. I mean, in the meantime, and we have many of those people in the room here as well. We have people from Google, Microsoft, IBM, you name it, Coca-Cola, Nestle, all coming into healthcare because they believe there's value to be had also in their kind of a business. So clearly, I think a lot of change going on. And where these new entrants predominantly play is in the digital space. And if you look at what digitization did over the past decade, you see that it disrupted many industries. It started in 1995 with the music industry, with the photography, and then it went on into print media, TV, finance, healthcare, and I guess by 2020 there will be not a single industry in the world that will not be impacted by the ways of digitization. And just to show you how of a disruptive effect it can have is, I looked at this slide from the music industry, and you see how much the music industry changed over time, where in the green you see the old 8-track, then being replaced by vinyl, cassette, CDs. And ironically, the slide is from 2015, but it's completely outdated because streaming is still very small there. And in 2017, the amount of music streaming actually surpassed the revenue from CDs. So it just tells you how big of a disruption that can cause when digitization hits you. And there's been many companies. I think the graveyard of once Fortune 500 companies that are no longer there is huge. I mean, I put a picture here of Kodak, but I could have put up Wine Computers. I could have put up the old Nokia. So there's many examples of how really change can impact. And if you don't embrace change, basically, that could be the end of it. And I know by nature we are change averse. I once heard the expression, which I really like, is the only person who likes change is a wet baby. And it's probably true. So, but it's better to embrace change because otherwise you run the risk of being disrupted and become irrelevant. So I think for us it's really important to embrace that change, not see it as a threat, but rather as an opportunity. And so I've come to the solution because you can say, hey, Kris, we're talking about pharma becoming the solution, but all you talk about here is doom and gloom. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity. Rather than seeing all of these things as challenges and threats, we should rather see them as tremendous opportunities. And I think we have an extremely important role to play here. Now, the first thing it takes is to look longer term. And again, we usually, also in our business, we have the tendency to have a gravity towards the here and now, to be short-term biased. So we have to look beyond that. And usually when we make our planning, it's about talking about the day after tomorrow, what the long term will bring. Now, usually when we make our business plans, 70% goes to the here and now, 20% on paper goes to what comes tomorrow, and 10% will maybe go to the long-term view that we have. Then we go into our actual performance, and by March of every year, where we are now, 93% of our time goes to the here and now, 7% maybe for tomorrow, but we basically completely forget about the day after tomorrow. But the value that we can create as an industry, and we underestimate that, is really in that day after tomorrow thinking. That's why we really have to think long term. Now, one of the main elements holding us back is the so-called SOY, or the shit of yesterday. And what is that? It's the bureaucracy. It's the processes that we know. It's really the way that we say that being used to doing things and not challenge ourselves to do things differently. And make no mistake, that's exactly what those new entrants, like an Amazon, do not have. They start with a white sheet of paper. They don't have any baggage from the past, but they say, hey, if in the 21st century, if we want to be successful in healthcare, what would it take? They're not being bogged down by what they had before. Same thing with Samsung. When they decided to enter in our space about now 6-7 years ago, they just took literally a white sheet of paper and say, what would it take in the 21st century to develop a biosimilar product? They don't go by our old processes. They really went a different way. Rather than doing it sequentially, they went actually simultaneously in through the research process. And they are now the powerhouse and probably the go-to company when it comes to the development of biosimilars. So we should not underestimate that so-called shit of yesterday. We should really try to discard that. So, on the solution, which path should we then take? I basically see two directions. We can either go in what I would call the wrong direction, where you can have a locked-in, locked-out situation. Locked-in meaning we might be asked to bring a product to market for ethical and legal reasons without getting a premium for innovation. We might be locked out, as you see in the Netherlands, where debates about the future of healthcare take place, but we're not invited at the debate. We can move into a two-tier healthcare system, like we see in emerging markets, where there's universal coverage for a number of more common diseases, but you have to take out private health insurance in order to cover yourself for anything that comes above that, which I think is also not a good way. Or we can really go into the different direction, which is a partnership for value. You see that in specific countries where long-term framework agreements are being made between government, industries, and payers to really give you a sustainable environment where innovation can thrive, where you do have a lot of competition between me-too products, or even go beyond that into the direction of disease interception, disease prevention. And I think that's really where the solution needs to be. Now, on the one hand, we will have the combination of science and technology leading to what I would call revolution. It's amazing if you see what the possibilities of artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, you name it, where we are going. I think we're really on our way to a world without disease, where basically it's not about treating disease, but about managing health. If you will, our version of the circular economy. If you want an analogy, like a company like Philips, not selling any more light bulbs, but selling light and giving you a contract on a yearly basis to provide you with light in your company or in your house. They will replace the light bulbs. You only pay for the light. That's the circular economy. That's also what I think where you need to go, managing health rather than treating disease. So you have that on the one side. On the other side, you have what I was already saying, much more vocal, demanding patients, in control of their own health, very knowledgeable about their own health, wanting access to the best healthcare. In between, you have basically in the developed world, the governments and ourselves. Governments, even more than ourselves, by nature are short-term thinking. Politicians usually get elected for 4 to 5 years and want to make an impact on the short term. So the day after tomorrow thinking doesn't play for them. And when I came back from Asia, where in Asia you can still, as an industry, you're still invited at the table and you can still have an impact in shaping the healthcare environment. When I came back to Europe, people said to me, Kris, don't expect to be shaping any healthcare in Europe. It's basically shaped. Now, I wholeheartedly disagree with that because we have to reshape the industry. Otherwise, we're going into that doom and gloom scenario that I was talking about. So it's about collaboration. And I know we have a trust issue, we have a credibility issue, but of course, I'm siding with my boss, Joaquin. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in good shape. I think about being a trusted partner, and I believe we can do it. It's hard work. But we have to get that credibility up there because if we're not being seen as a credible partner, we're probably not going to be invited at the table, but we'll be on the menu, and it's never good to be on the menu. So it's about collaboration, and I think one of the points I want to make there is sustainable healthcare is a joint responsibility. I often feel that governments push the problem only in our direction, but they actually have to be taking their we will have to collaborate. So for me, the only way of bringing that revolution in technology and science, and on the one hand, the demands that patients today have together is by collaboration. So this is really also an appeal. If we want to get to the solution, collaboration is absolutely the key in how to achieve that.